Now, I've talked to you about the power, and I've waxed lyrical, I have to say, over the monopoly power of councils in this country and the lack of accountability that they can be held to when things go wrong. We've talked about that a lot on the platform over the last 2.5 years, and how unfixed and, in cases, unhinged local government can be when it's run by bureaucrats and has governments basically along for the ride. A whole series of people you elect to think you're representatives. When something goes wrong, turn around and tell you, oh, that's an operational matter, that's nothing to do with me. And you're going, what the hell did I elect you for? Well, those must be some of the thoughts of Hutt Valley residents at the moment, as who live within the proximity of the Seaview wastewater treatment plant, which is one of the major, if not the major, wastewater treatment plant for the Hutt City Council. And the wastewater treatment plant is stinky. How stinky? Well, let's go and talk to someone who is affected by it and who's taken the council on this particular issue, and that is Don Gould, who is a spokesperson for residents and is making a noise. We did invite the Hutt City Council Mayor Campbell Barry on the show this morning to talk about this. He refused to do so. So we'll go and talk to the residents instead and find out what the issue is and why, if anything, nothing is happening. Don Gould joins us now. Don, welcome to the show. Lovely to have you on. Mate, what's your role in this?
Thanks, Michael. Bit of clarification, actually. I'm actually a Christchurch resident. I'm actually up here in Lower Hutt right now because I grew up in Lower Hutt, and I've got lots and lots of friends in Lower Hutt who are affected by this stench. And I've been following the issue very closely because I was key and involved in advocacy when the Christchurch wastewater treatment plant caught fire. So I've
yes.
come up here this week for the public meeting to give them a bit of support.
Right. Gotcha. Thank you very much. I didn't quite get that in my background notes to this, but that's all right. So, yes, you were involved in the Christchurch one. Now, what was the suburb that was affected by that?
Bromley is the suburb that was affected by that, and it was an absolute stench. And interestingly, what happened after the fire, of course, is the biological processes in the plant broke down, and that meant that our oxidation ponds became incredibly, incredibly stinky because the organic processes that normally evolve stopped happening because of the fact we lost our trickling filters. Now, interestingly, the same thing has happened in Lower Hutt in a different way, but basically that entire plant at present, as I understand it from Monday night's public meeting, is an absolute crisis. The biological process has failed because the dryer in the plant went offline, and then it went offline again, and then they've had a massive build-up of sludge in the plant. So basically the residents in the entire area are enduring a huge stench, and it's not going away anytime soon.
No, and that's the interesting part about Seaview, but it was also the interesting part about Christchurch as well. In Christchurch, as I remember, and I remember following that story well, Don, and it was causing literal physical harm to the health of nearby residents. And the then mayor, I remember, Leanne Dalziel, was wringing her hands about it, but not able to offer any practical or solutions. Was there any end solution at all?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, actually, it was 6 months before the proverbial really hit the fan when a woman called Vicky Walker turned up in the chamber, which is when I got involved absolutely in tears. And then the council very quickly realised that they had dropped the ball as far as a community response was concerned. They got very focused on what they were going to do to get the plant operational, but they'd completely dropped the ball about responding to the mental health and the physical health of the community. So literally within 6 weeks, $1 million for community support was put on the table, health checks done, databases created of all of the affected residents, media attention really wound up.
Yeah, it did, and that's where I think I got involved. Listen, okay, so is this a similar same, lesser, bigger version of Christchurch happening now in Lower Hutt?
It's Lower Hutt, of course, for the benefit of listeners around the country, is a lot smaller space. Christchurch is a population of 405 odd thousand. Lower Hutt, Upper Hutt, Wainuiomata, it's around 100,000. So the scale of it is certainly lesser. But for the people of Seaview, they're a very similar sort of situation to Bromley. They can't escape it. Their school children can't escape it. When it goes stinky and it's a warm day and the wind is in the wrong direction, you can't run away from it. You can run inside, but if the stench has already made its way inside, then your house stinks as well. So what do you do?
Yeah, absolutely. The incredible thing about this is, and it is amazing, is that the initial reports were 8 years ago. 8 years ago were the initial reports from residents. And now the City Mayor Campbell Barry is saying that fixing the plant is, and you were at the public meeting at which he was, I'm sure, that fixing the plant was the council's number one priority, but he couldn't promise that there would be any actual improvement for the next 4 years. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. He's not actually promising that the stench will go away completely either, because the plan for the next 4 years is simply to deliver a new dryer. But that infrastructure is ageing, and what they're very concerned about is misleading the public any further. Now, what they did say before Christmas was that the replacement of a thing called a biofilter was going to actually resolve most of the plant's problems. And what we have learnt is that it didn't actually resolve the plant's problems as well. As quickly as they got the biofilter back up and running after discovering that it was more damaged than they thought it was, which they have now fixed, that's when their dryer started kicking up problems. And one of the concerns is that once they fix the dryer, then there'll be other components in the plant that are also at end of life and have not been maintained well over the last 6 or 7 years, or in fact a little bit longer than that. So as soon as they play whack-a-mole with this one, the next one will crop up. So, the mayor is very gun-shy on this stuff now because, he is committed to the biofilter would sort this out, and then it didn't.
Yeah, well, maybe that's why he won't come on the platform and explain what the Lower Hutt Council or the Upper Hutt Council are doing either. But he's been around for a while, Campbell Barry. This is not the first time he's been elected. He was elected in 2019. It is, as you know, the end of November 2024. He's been there for 5 years. What's he been doing?
Well, that's an interesting question, and you were touching on this earlier in the show, actually. I was listening on. How this has come about is that the council owns the two councils own an operation called Wellington Water.
So that's Lower Hutt. Is that Hutt City and Wellington?
Wellington City, Lower Hutt, Upper Hutt, Wainuiomata, Carterton are involved in it, Pororua City Council as well. So there's 5 councils involved.
Okay.
And then they have this. Then they have another company. So what happened is they then adopted the contracts for this wastewater plant back in 2019. Now they were aware when they adopted those contracts that the plant was run down. Now, there is a lot of different ways to run infrastructure, as you're probably well aware. One is that you can keep it maintained at its best potential all the time. That's expensive. But what it does mean is you don't have an end-of-life problem quite so much. The other is to make your capital investment up front, run it until it's at end of life, and then plan ahead of time to do your replacement just as the existing infrastructure is due to go out of service. The problem is that the government came in, as we all remember, and promised that we were going to have 3 waters. They promised they were going to take over these plants. They promised they were going to make the investment. They promised that the councils just needed to tie-ho and wait, and their assets would be purchased. So, of course, councils, in their wisdom, put everything on hold because, of course, they can't commit themselves to taking on more debt when they've got the uncertainty of not knowing whether the government's going to buy out that debt. They don't know whether their new investment will be paid off by the council or whether the government will just take their assets and leave their residents with the debt to actually service in tandem with paying additional taxes
Yeah,
to run their
listen.
wastewater.
Yeah, I sort of get that. Except I've been a mayor myself, and I've had wastewater treatment plant problems myself. And you don't just sit there and wait and hope that your government's going to bail you out when you've got a problem like this and it's causing significant loss of quality of life. This guy also happens to be. This guy also happens to be Campbell Barry, the mayor of Lower Hutt. He happens to be the chair of the Wellington Water Committee too. So as the chair, he would be completely aware of the state of the infrastructure, and not just of that plant, but of wastewater treatment plants throughout the region. All right, and he was, and he was a council. He's been a councillor in the Lower Hutt Council since 2013. So again, it's not like he's ignorant of the issue at all. He's been there after all for the last 11 years. Okay, going this one though, it seems to me that I'm paying my rates if I'm a Lower Hutt councillor. Sorry, not as a Lower Hutt to ratepayer. I'm having my quality of life impinged upon on a daily basis. I've just got a text, for example, at the moment that says, well, Michael, this goes back further than that. I used to work 30 years ago across from Seaview, and it stunk then. So, I mean, it has clearly been around for a long time. What options do residents have? Could they just say, I'm sorry, I'm not paying my rates until you fix this problem up because you are destroying quality of life? Could they take the council to court, for example, a tort of, I think, public or private nuisance for saying you are affecting my quality of life and it is unfair?